One thing I ask of you, Lord, this is what I seek, that I may dwell in your house all the days of my life, to gaze upon your beauty and seek you in your temple. This is what I ask. Oh, this is what I ask. One thing I ask of you, Lord. Oh, this is what I seek, that I may dwell in your house, all the days of my life, to gaze upon your beauty and seek you in your temple. This is what I ask. This is what I ask, to be with you, to see your face, to gaze upon your beauty. Hi, welcome back to our third webcast in this series, coming to you from Jerusalem this evening, and it's great to be with you and to be sharing these things that Gil and I are talking about is very, very special. And this week we're focusing on the Torah, and I think when I think about this, because it's been kind of a challenge for me, really coming at this, because I definitely had some preconceptions. And then I look at a statement that Yeshua made, and he said, I didn't come to abolish the law, I came to fulfill the law. And so this has been like trying to understand what he was saying. So, but anyway, that's my little thing here. Just a little thing that I'm trying to really come to the Lord with, and say, you know, what did you mean? What did you mean by that? So first of all, like, can you just, what is the Torah? I mean, I know when I first came to Israel and first started to just understand things, I had the word tanakh, I had Torah, and it was like, you know, trying to get it all figured out, all straightened out. So I'm guessing that maybe some other people might need some help with that too. So the Tanakh is...
So the Tanakh is the Bible. The Tanakh is well, three letters there, right? The Taf, Tanakh. So those three letters stands for, the Taf is Torah, and then the Nun, that's Nevi'im, the prophets, and then the Ch sound in the end, that's the Ktuvim, that's the writings. So we get basically the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. So the Torah, well, technically speaking, the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible. That's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
Very good. Those are hard ones.
I had to memorize that. And So this is what the Torah, I mean, technically speaking, that is the Torah. And after that, I mean, everything which happens after that, starting from the book of Joshua, I mean, all the prophets and the writings, I mean, we take it as fulfillment of everything which is included in the Torah. As a fulfillment of that. And the Torah basically, well, it has a few parts, I would say, and each part is focused on something else, on something different. For example, we have, the stories, at the beginning of how everything started. The beginning of the Genesis, right? I mean, the beginning of the world and how humanity was developed, how the world was created, and so we have all these stories, and then it becomes, so it starts very general, and then it becomes more and more about the Jewish people. There was humanity, and then there was Abraham who was chosen, and then his descendants, and then they were sent into Egypt and became a people, and there was the word of God which was given. It's all this development of in this world. So there are like the stories, and there are the parts which are more, people would say technical, of how to do things. What you should keep and how you should keep it, and then there are other parts as well. And but when we talk about the Torah, we actually talk about two versions of the Torah. We have the written version, which we see written in the Bible, but we also have another version, which is, as we call it, like the off-by-heart version, which was given to Moshe, as we believe, and according to our tradition, which was given to Moses on Mount Sinai. I mean, we know that Moses came, the Bible, the Torah is just saying he went up. We don't know if he went up the mountain or he went really up. We don't really get that from the verses, on a simple level. But in any way, I mean, he was with God, like in this way or another, and he was taught all the rules. And this is something that God is explicitly saying, is including in the Bible, that Moses got all the rules and regulations and all the details of how to keep what we need to keep and everything we need to keep and all that. And then he taught it to the people, to the Jewish people, and then it passed, in tradition from generation to generation. So we know that it went from Moses to Joshua, and then to the judges, and then to the prophets, and then to the elders, all the way until a time in history where it was actually written. Mm-hmm. So basically, we are holding two versions of it: the written version and the off-by-heart version. Yeah,
I mean, for me as a Christian, growing up, reading the stories, and reading the story of Mount Sinai, the giving of the commandments. I mean, I knew there were 10.
10 commandments.
Yeah, and even then you would say to me, well, you even challenged me on, well, why don't you keep them all? And it's just like, when it comes to certain things in those 10 commandments. I mean, I wasn't aware, in a sense, that these 613 were being kept. That this was, I just saw it as something in history. I saw it as something that happened, but not realizing that this is very, very much part of your life.
This is, I would say that the reason why we're here is because we kept it all these years. This is the reason why we're here. Otherwise,
a lot of people would, I think. I might say that maybe one of the preconceptions is that you keep the law out of a sense of fear because of a lack of understanding of the mercy of God, and that it's just done out of fear. But the thing is, this has been challenged in my what I've seen and what I know of you. I don't see you as someone that is afraid of in an unhealthy way. I know we are all
who's motivated by the fear.
Yeah, I don't see you as someone who's motivated by fear, that somehow if you don't get it right, then you go game over. I do see you as someone that really does embrace the sense of the mercy of God.
Try. A person who tries really hard. That I can say.
Yeah.
I think it's the whole thing, in our life, being on a process, a process of reaching to a point.
But I mean, keeping all these laws, you grew up with this, right?
I grew up with it, and of course there are the advantages and disadvantages to that, right? I mean, because once you grow up with something, and you never chose it. I mean, you were born into it. You were raised that way. This was your safety zone, right? This is how they taught you, and for a good reason. But I think there are many levels of Avodat Hashem. Avodat Hashem, that's like working the Lord, like serving the Lord. I know that in English they say like to worship the Lord, which is maybe the closest, but it's not just worshiping. There's a lot of commitment involved here, like practical commitment involved.
Yeah, but it's not good. We can't just kind of say, oh, okay, I'm going to church and I'm going to worship the Lord, or I'm going to spend all this time just in worship. If we don't then go out and live it.
This is something which you're taking with you 24/7.
Yeah.
Especially on the seventh day, by the way, but really,
we'll come back to that one.
but really, like really 24/7. It's not something that you ever have any break from. You know, it's there all the time. I mean, the Torah has something to say about every little aspect of our lives, and I think it's beautiful. You know, it's not a chore to me. It's not as if I'm carrying it on my back and I'm tired of it, and that's not the case. I mean. And I think a person who is initially motivated by fear, he would get over his fears at some point, and then it would become a chore to him. You know, he won't be able to handle it anymore. And I think God is warning us, warning and describing the situation. Also, I mean, Himself. He's saying, you know, hear out Israel, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear out Israel, your God is one. And then right after, that's in Deuteronomy, and right after that, there is, and you shall love your God with all of your heart and keep His word. So the verse starts with loving. It doesn't start with threatening you to keep it, like all the punishments which exist if you don't keep it. But you know, it starts with the love. You know, once you have the love, once you have your heart placed correctly in the right place, then you can actually keep everything, and it really is not a chore to you. Vice versa, I think it's great. You know, I don't have to make any decisions, right? Everything is it's a given set. You know, this is what's going to happen. That's the way to go. There's some sort of relief in that.
So then, keeping the law for you, how is like. In terms of your relationship with God, what is the keeping of the law? How are you, what is that to you? In terms of how you relate, why do you keep the law?
Well, I keep the law because I was chosen to keep the law, first of all. You don't just choose to do that. You don't just get up one morning and say, well, in Judaism, that's interesting, let's try that. Well, you never choose to be Jewish. You're chosen to be. And as being chosen, you are chosen to serve in that way, to serve the Lord in that way. You are given, right from day 8, right? There's the circumcision. You are chosen to serve in a certain way. You don't choose your way. You don't get to, there are of course different ways to, not ways, but like maybe different customs or maybe different flavors, I would say. Like you would do it in one way. You're doing basically two people could do the same thing, but they can do it completely differently, right? With different spirit and different mindset. So you can choose that, but you are commanded to keep 613 commands. And one of the commands, by the way, is loving God.
Yeah.
There's this philosophical question: how can you command someone to love you? Well, it is a question. It is a question we're facing every day. But one of the answers is, if you have the love, once you have the love, keeping everything won't be an issue for you. If you do not have the love, keeping it would bring you to love Him. So it's like a cycle, there are like two elements and one is inside the other, yet they're different.
It's like, I think it was my father actually one time just said, even if you're not feeling close to God, or you're not quite sure about God, at least put yourself in front of His fire. and you know, if we do that, and I think that's a little bit similar to what you're saying. Yeah. One of the 10 commandments is about keeping Shabbat, and I know that there are many of these 613 commandments that are actually connected, aren't they, with the keeping of Shabbat? Yeah. And so, what is Shabbat? What does Shabbat look like to you, Gil, with your family? You have a young family, and what is an average, if there's such a thing as an average Shabbat? What is a...
Well, there is no such thing as an average Shabbat. Shabbat is always is a peak,
never,
right?
Exactly.
It's,
so tell us what's...
Well, on a personal level, it's a time where everything must stop. I mean, everything must stop. No work should be done. Nothing is on, you know, but still everything is on. You know, this is where we get, you know, strength for the whole week. You know, this is like you know, we are charging ourselves, you know, and this is what motivates us the whole week. So for us, I mean, it's a family time, it's a prayer time, it's for learning, it's for, I mean, being together, praying, worshiping. It's all about that, sanctifying the day, sanctifying the chosen day that God had chosen to be the day of rest, the one day of rest. And if we look at the scriptures, I mean, one of the reasons that we keep Shabbat is because, well, first of all, because God said so, but God said so because, well, He rested on the seventh day, and we should do the same. And just as a reminder, Shabbat was not given. Shabbat was given in Genesis before there were Jews in the world. Before Abraham, God spoke about Shabbat, right? We see the fact that the Torah includes the fact that God rested on the seventh day. Now, of course, that all these words like rested and this we're using these words only because, you know, we're human beings, so we can't really understand what is the rest of God, right? Well, it's not even close to what we call rest.
Have you thought about that a lot?
Oh yeah.
I've not thought. I have to say I haven't thought about much about what it is for God to rest. I've thought a lot about what it is to enter into His rest.
Because, I mean, if we, well, of course we acknowledge the fact that He controls it all, right?
Yes.
Well, He's in charge for the sun to rise and the moon to rise and everything which is going on, let's say, in nature. So, well, He said, I rested, but every Shabbat the sun still rises and you know, everything takes place. So is He not in charge for that? Obviously He is. So God resting, it's very different than us resting, for sure. But I think it's a life lesson, you know. I think it's a life lesson that, you know, for us to know our real place as human beings, you know, we do not control anything in this world. We just don't. You know, it's all in His hands, and even if we put our instruments down for one day, the world would still exist. Okay, really, it's happening. It's possible to do, and I think it's the greatest life lesson to get.
It's a wonderful thing to feel it here in Israel. It's an amazing thing. I mean, where else in the world do you see that? Everything stops. It's
a very central part in the covenant.
Yeah,
you know, this is really the covenant. And I mean, you shall keep my word, you shall keep my day, you shall keep just walk on the path that I'm giving you, and I will look after you, I will keep you. You know, it's this relationship is amazing. Is amazing.
Yeah, that's it challenges me. Because there's a part of me, I mean, I think I'm learning to really enter into it and get to the point of feeling this anticipation well, even on Thursday night, you know, starting to feel it. Tomorrow, you know, it's going to come this moment, and it's not like, oh, I think maybe I won't do anything. I won't do any work. It's like, well, how do I deal with the fact that God's saying, don't do any work? That's a little different. And it's a hard one, because I think I think like getting that fine line and balance again for me between being tied up with rules and what you can do and what you can't do, and just simply saying, I'm just going to enter into your rest. I'm not going to do anything except just be there with you, for you today, and read your word. And
if I go back a little bit, what you said before about living with all these rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean there are 613 commands, but how to keep those commands? There are like thousands of how to keep those commands. For example, one of the commands could be we were saying Shabbat. But there are a lot of details of how to keep Shabbat. So what does it mean, not to do work? Mm-hmm. So and then you have like all the types of works that you're not allowed to do. So it's a really, it's a complicated
what about
thing. But what I want to say is that it does put you at the risk of becoming obsessed with the rules, okay, and then forgetting your heart. And this is a constant battle, in yourself, in your heart, of the freedom to love Him, but yet being committed to the rules, because these rules basically determine the relationship. In any relationship, and you're not allowed to do whatever you want, right? Let's say in marriage, you always do what your wife says you're going to do, right? There are rules there, and and this is what determines the relationship. All these rules.
But what about? I know that there are the rules, there are the commands that are in the Torah, and then we were talking earlier in the last program. We were talking about exile, and we were talking about how exile affected the people, and that there were so many things that were put in place in order to kind of keep the people together. Yeah. So then there were things added.
There were things that were added, just because we were not sure anymore, because everything was done by tradition. And we were not sure anymore of is this the right way to do it? Because when we've had the temple, when we were in the land, all of us together, and there was the manifest presence, everything was in place. We knew what we were supposed to do. There was direct communication. Once that was gone, and we stopped getting the revelations according to which we used to live our lives. And once that was gone, we did everything by memory. But many of the commands were involved in the temple. Once that was gone, how should we keep it? So we didn't really, up until today, we don't really know how to do it. So what leaders did, throughout the years, they've added, kind of like fences, to the rule. And we said, okay, so we're not sure exactly how to keep that particular rule, but if we put a fence around it, like we're going to step away and like add more restrictions, we would definitely be on the safe side. Right. So it was done because of that, not because of any fear, or it was only so that we can be sure that we are still keeping what we should keep, and we were not breaking, the covenant. And it was a great difficulty, to keep everything unified in a way, different communities all over the world. And that was a real challenge. It was a real challenge, and it took the blessing that we actually got to make it happen, so that we can still keep the same things, a little differently, but still keep the same things.
Well, I remember you telling me how when, with all the Jews coming back from all over the world to Israel, and you told me about the people coming from Ethiopia.
Yeah,
and,
so
and
for
how
example,
they didn't have the...
Yeah, they were sent into exile, and then we've lost contact with them. So many of the things that were renewed, or restrictions that were added, it did not get to them. So they came here, and then all of a sudden we find a Jewish community practicing differently than how we do. And even the thought that Jerusalem is really made out of gold, it was that, the disconnection was that bad. And so when they came, they had to learn all over again, how we do things, actually. So it's just one example, but it happened, all over the world, actually.
That must have been hard for them.
Very much. It's like, it's one body and one organ is missing. Yeah. It's because, as we said in the last program, it's losing your unity.
But there's a sense in which almost they may be closer to the original.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
The thing is that we don't really know today. We don't know all the rules specifically.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying, as the best we can. Mm-hmm. We're trying the best we can, and there's always this need to regulate everything. The things are written because we're talking about millions of people that need to do the same thing. So the leadership always feels the need for justified reasons to regulate everything, to write everything down, so that we know where we're going. But it does put you at the risk of forgetting your heart. So this is the work you have to do as a believer.
I think of these words from Hosea when God says to his people, "I remember the devotion of your youth, how you loved me as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness, in a land not sown." I love these words, but they really do speak of that place of following after his heart and following after his way with all of your heart.
True.
So let's sing that, because I love this song. יפה. אני אוהבת את זה. So, we're going to finish with that, and I think of that word devotion. I remember the devotion of your youth. And I think both in my heart, and I know in Gil's heart, there was just that longing to be devoted to the Lord, and how we want to follow Him. We want to follow His way, and the way that He's shown us in each of our hearts. Next program, we're going to be talking about the land of Israel, and how that, I know, is so strongly connected, and you really need to come here to feel that. Don't forget, you can check us out on our Facebook page, which is called Between Heaven and Earth. Hopefully you can find us there. And every week Gil writes something on the weekly Torah portion, and that's always an interesting time. Please send us your comments, your understandings, and let's let God speak to us together, and it's really exciting to get your input. And if you want to support us in what we're doing, just to help us to be able to continue with these kind of programs, that would be really great. So you can visit the website, and you'll see a place to do that, www.ruthfazal.com. Let's finish with our song.
Our hymn.
Our hymn, yeah, our hymn. Ani Ma'amin. Tell us again the meaning of these words, Gil.
So, Ani Ma'amin be'emunah shlema. So I believe with all my heart and soul, in complete faith, in the coming of the Mashiach. And even though he delay, ve'im af al pi she'yitma'ameh, im kol ze achake lo. With all this, I will wait for him. I will wait for him every day. He will come.
I believe with all my heart in the coming of Mashiach. Amen. See you next week.